This is Danny Gilfillan for Seconds Out in Manchester. It's a pleasure to be joined by Spencer Oliver. Spencer, always good to see you, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, Dan, always good to see you as well, mate. You know what? I'm loving it here up in Champs Camp in Manchester. This is like steeped with history in here. Do you know what I mean? The good fighters that have come through this gym is incredible. And like, you feel the atmosphere when you come in gyms like this. There's not many gyms like this left in the country anymore. You know, it's like old school. Reminds me of when I was boxing, going back in the day. You had these sort of gyms and it just creates a wicked atmosphere. Yeah, it's nice here, man. It's looking forward to a big night of boxing on Saturday night. Obviously, topped by Franchon Crews-Dezurn versus Savannah Marshall for the super middleweight undisputed title. Can't wait for that. And Natasha Jonas going for that second world title, welterweight world title against Candy Wyatt as well, mate. It's gonna be good. Ben Whitaker on the show as well. Looking forward to it. But let's break it down.
Just on the main event to start, Savannah could have been forgiven for taking an easier touch after the loss to Clarissa Shields back in, I think it was October, but straight back in, back-to-back undisputed world title fights. Big night for Savannah Marshall.
Yeah, it's a huge night for Savannah. You know, these girls have got history as well. They've boxed as amateurs before. You know, Savannah scraped through that one. It was a tough fight. She won 12-10, so she knows what she's going into. And Franchon Crews-Dezurn, we've seen what she's like. We saw her. She lost 4 times in the amateurs to Clarissa. Boxed Clarissa in her debut as well. But she showed what she's all about. She's tough. She's rough. Technically not that great, but you know, she's stubborn and she's rough and she likes to, have a fight. She'll make things tough for Savannah. That's for sure. Savannah jumping up a weight division. I think they'll be more suited for her there. But Franchon's gone on to have a great career, becoming undisputed champion for the reasons I've just said. You know, she's a tough girl to beat and she does like to rough it up. It's going to be a good fight, that one. I'm looking forward to it.
I spoke to Johnny Nelson earlier and he told me Clarissa's actually going to be here on Saturday night. Do you think that adds an extra sort of layer of pressure for obviously both women, but Savannah in particular?
I don't think it adds extra pressure. I think that, champions feed off pressure. You know, so by her being there, it may bring the best out in both of these girls because the prize is fighting Clarissa Shields again. Because, you know, you haven't got a depth of talent at the very top at the moment in women's boxing, but the ones that are at the top are good and they're very good. And, you know, Clarissa Shields, Savannah Marshall, Franchon Crews-Dezurn, they're 3 of the best, you know. So I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to seeing. I predict the winner goes on and boxes Clarissa Shields. I think that's where we'll probably be. But it's going to be a great fight on Saturday night. You know, I think that everybody knows that the girls as well, you know, spoke to both girls and Savannah said, listen, I know it's tough. I know I'm going to have to ask myself questions in there. You know, it's going to become a psychological battle. And that's what champions are made of. When you can bite down on the gum shield, adapt, change things. I think for Savannah, she needs to keep it long. She needs to, you know, deliver that right hand because Franchon Dezurn she'll come forward. She will walk onto shots. You know, she keeps talking about how good her chin is and, you know, how tough she is. But as we saw with Joe Joyce versus Zhilei Zhang, there's only so much you can take. You know, I think that Savannah Marshall's very heavy-handed. And if you walk onto one of those, you could pay the price. So Franchon Crews-Dezurn has got to be careful while she does it. It's got to be educated pressure. Because if she goes in like a bully in a china shop, she may get taken out.
In that fantastic introduction you gave us, you mentioned Natasha Jonas as well. Chance of becoming a 2-weight world champion for Natasha. Up against Candy Whyte, who she's coming off 3 losses in her last 4. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but it doesn't seem like the toughest world title fight on paper. Do you think that's fair to say, Spencer?
That's a fair assessment. Yeah, no, Wyatt is tough, very tough, but quite limited, quite basic. I've seen her in the warm-ups there as well. Natasha Jonas looks brilliant. Dropping down that weight to welterweight is more suited to her. She looks sharp. She boxes out that southpaw style. She's putting the shots together well. Joe Gallagher's a great tactician. They've worked on this. Wyatt is a girl that is very one-dimensional, quite predictable. Walks forward in straight lines. Takes a lot of punishment. Jessica McCaskill, let's use her as an example. She took Wyatt out in 7 rounds, but it was a punishing defeat. You know, Wyatt was showing incredible bravery by staying in there and taking the shots she took. Against Natasha Jonas, she won't be able to take those sort of shots. Jonas is a spiteful puncher. I predict Jonas gets the fight done probably with inside 4 rounds. I think that she wins this one quite comfortably. Yeah, looking at both girls warming up, the levels, the golf in levels is phenomenal. Yeah, you expect Jonas to win this one quite clearly. It's the IBF, vacant IBF welterweight title.
Yeah, looking forward to it too. Potentially the best female fighters in the country. When I speak to you, Spencer, I always like to pick your thoughts on the sort of wider goings on in boxing, and the heavyweight division, as always, is the sort of the talk on everyone's lips. At the minute, the whole sort of circus is around this potential rematch between Anthony Joshua and Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte came out, says the contract was really low, the offer. Then he came out and said he would accept it. But what do you think about the sort of latest development of a rematch clause that's being imposed upon Dillian? You know, it's not for a world title. They're two fighters, so I think both have a bit to prove. Just what's your thoughts on that?
Anthony Joshua's had a rematch clause in every single fight he's ever had because of the commercial side of things and what he brings to the table and whatnot. So that rematch clause has always been in all the contracts. And you can understand that because they want to protect their investment. Is it right? Is it wrong? Well, I don't like seeing rematch clauses if they're not for title fights. I understand that you're trying to. It's like an insurance, really. But Anthony Joshua's a different level. He is the cash cow. He's the guy that brings the money to the table. Dillian Whyte's been offered big money for where he is right now in his career. I think it's he says he didn't want the rematch clause. He wants the opportunity to go and fight, if he wins, to go out there and fight with Deontay Wilder out in Saudi. Well, that's not happening. And I'll tell you why it's not happening, because I interviewed Amir Abdullah. And Amir Abdullah, when I asked him the question, what if one of these guys gets beat in one of these warm-up fights? Does that affect what's going on out there? And he said, no, these are the 4 heavyweights we want. They're the 4 heavyweights that we see as the most attractive out there. And that. So if Anthony Joshua went and got beat, we would still want to make the fight with him and Deontay Wilder out there. We think that's still a big sell. So I'm going, well, on that note, he needs Dillian Whyte take the fight for £3 million quid, take the fight. And if you win, there's a rematch clause in there. And you're going to get more money in the return. So I think from a business point of view, in the twilight of your career, that's what I'd like him to see him do. I like Dillian Whyte, and I think he's been a great ambassador for the sport. And I want to see him getting well paid. And I think that's the biggest money fight for him out there right now is Anthony Joshua. And Joshua obviously needs that fight before going in there out to Saudi and boxing Deontay Wilder. That's important that Joshua gets out again, because the performance we saw against Jermaine Franklin was not enough. We didn't see him aggressive enough. We didn't see him putting his shots together in clusters enough, and we didn't see phase 1, phase 2. What he needs, and he needs that for his own confidence, because he's lacking confidence in his own ability right now. So he needs another fight. So I hope for both guys' sakes they get that fight off the line.
I watched Carl Froch speaking about it this morning, and he's obviously been someone who's not been too shy in criticising AJ over recent months. He said that the fact that they've sent a sort of lower end offer, the rematch clause, and this deadline that Team Joshua have imposed upon Dillian, he thinks that translates as they don't really want the fight. They see it as too much of a risk with the money on offer from Saudi for Wilder. What do you think of that?
No, Josh, I know Anthony Joshua definitely wants to fight. He wants to fight again in April the 12th for the reasons I've just stated. He needs to get out again. He still needs to get, that is the lack of inactivity has not been good for him. Against Franklin, he didn't look particularly good. He got through, but there was frustrations from his side. He knows that there's more still to come. And to go into a fight like against Deontay Wilder, you got to be at your best, and he's not there right now. So he needs that confidence builder. Dillian Whyte will bring that out in him, because Dillian will bring the heat to him. There's always stylistically there, it's always going to work. So Joshua wants to fight. He wants to fight on August the 12th. August the 12th is the date that's penciled in. Who the opponent is, I don't know right now, but I'm hoping it's Dillian Whyte. I'm hoping Dillian goes, you know what, let's take a look at this. There's enough money. The money that he's going to get from that fight, he won't get anywhere else, I don't think. And if he gets a rematch, if he beats Anthony Joshua, the rematch is worth more, surely. So, it's a business at the end of the day. And I want to see Dillian looked after, and also I want to see Joshua, get that fight before going out there. So, yeah.
Just sticking with the heavyweight, Spencer, Tyson Fury, not really sure where to start. He's been calling for fights with MMA fighters, cruiserweights. I don't think we're in any more clarity of who he's fighting than we were 4 or 5 months ago. Just what's going on? Who do you think he fights next? Does he fight Usyk? Does he have a fight before then?
Do you know what? I hope he fights again. I think we might see him out again in September. I think Deontay Wilder's now very close to doing a deal with Andy Ruiz Jr. That's possibly Junior's obviously asking for 50-50 split on that. I think they'll come to some sort of compromise, and I think that fight will happen. So that just leaves just Tyson Fury, because we've got Alexander Usyk, Daniel Dubois out in Poland September the 26th. So where does that leave Fury? It's frustrating, because he is the number 1 heavyweight out there right now, and he's the guy that's struggling to find a worthwhile opponent, or worthy opponent. So it's frustrating for him. People, the opponents that want to get in with him are outpricing themselves. So he's in this situation. He's in this situation that he wants to fight, but he can't find a credible opponent. So it's frustrating, man. He keeps saying big news soon, big news soon. And this is like sort of pissing us all off as well, because we're going, really? Because we're not getting that news. I want to see Tyson in the ring again. If we don't see him in the ring before, then perhaps we do see him out there against Alexander Usyk, and that's the next one we see. Tyson Fury's never been afraid of going into big fights without having warm-up fights. Fury's like that. He's old school. Do you know what I mean? He likes to fight. But yeah, I feel for him, and the frustrations for him on his side right now. But they can't seem to compromise on money, and that's the root of it all at the moment. You know, it's becoming very political. Yeah.
Do you think we're starting to see public opinion turn against Tyson?
Yeah, definitely. I think so because of the frustration. Listen, like, you know, you speak to Frank Warren, and I understand it more when you speak to Frank Warren and what the reasons for the breakdowns of the fights, etc., etc., etc. You know, with people outpricing themselves and with the money that's on the table and whatnot. Tyson Fury's the number one. So look, I understand it, but the public perception is they're getting pissed off because Fury does a lot of social media, a lot of Instagram, and he's calling for a lot of fights, and we don't see him materialise. So public opinion is, yeah, they're getting pissed off. They want to see him back in the ring. You know, he's the number one heavyweight in the world, and we want to see him out there. And we want to see him in action. So let's hope we see less Instagram posts, and hopefully we see him back in the ring.
100%. Just very last thing, Spencer. Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank. Another thing that feels like it's been dragging on for months and months. It's on, it's off. It's something that's had obviously big implications for this card on Saturday night. The latest we're hearing is that talks are at an advanced stage, regardless of what happens with Conor's UCAD situation. Eddie Hearn has said they'll take it to Abu Dhabi if Conor's not cleared to fight by UCAD. What do you think of that? What message does that send out?
It's not a great message for boxing. It's not a good look for boxing, that's for sure. You know, because it's sort of like, you know, until the situation is cleared up, I don't think they should be talking about a fight. I think they need to clear this because it's been such a fucking messy situation. Do you know what I mean? Where people have been ongoing talking about it. You know, I'm bored of talking about it because of just this whole fucking situation. You know what I mean? Until proven innocent, you know what I mean? It's strict liability, mate. What goes in is your responsibility, and that's where we're at with it. So let's see what happens in the next couple of weeks. They say now they prove their innocence. I'm not sure how that works, but let's see how it goes. He's got a new team on the case with it now. Yeah, not worth talking about that fight until we know that Conor's ready to fight again. So I suppose that's probably the best way of putting it at the moment. I would like to see Chris Eubank Jr. trying to go over old ground with Liam Smith again. I'm hearing that they are in advanced talks as well. So let's see where we're at with that.
Just last one, I promise. You touched on the new evidence that's being presented that Conor says is now proven his innocence. From what I've read and what I understand, that is the contamination by food, which is the sort of defence he ruled out a couple of months ago. Just what do you make of that?
You just fucking answer my question, man. Do you know what I mean? It's like, really? It's all over the place. Do you know what I mean? Is it contamination? Is it not contamination? Is it food? Is it not food? Is it eggs? Is it not eggs? Fucking, where are we going with it? Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, I'm twisted up with it, man. Yeah, it's all over the place. I suppose we just have to wait and see. They've got a new legal team on it, and let's just let's see where it is and see where it goes.
Spencer, always grateful for the time. I'll let you get back to work. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Cheers, mate.